Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the first two episodes of Kenobi, my thoughts on the episodes, critiques, and what I'd like to see in the coming episodes. As always, if you like this video, share it with your friends and family, share the channel. Let me know in the comments your opinions, concerns of Kenobi so far, and what else you'd like to see some other video content made about. This video is obviously going to contain spoilers for the first two episodes of Kenobi, so if you haven't seen them, go see them before you watch this video. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk Star Wars. We'll start by talking about episode 1. I personally really liked this episode. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Most of what I wanted to see and predicted to see were in episode 1. I loved the opening flashback scene from all the previous prequel films. It was awesome to see how they tied that in together with the actual storyline. I thought that was just great. And the Order 66 scene was very well done. It was very fun to watch. To see the Jedi Temple again and to watch the true destruction and chaos of Order 66 was really something special. We then got to see the daily life of Obi-Wan Kenobi and see how he's been living the last 10 years. He hasn't really been connected to the Force or used it at all since the events of Episode 3. He continues to struggle to communicate with Qui-Gon Jinn, and he tries to do anything in his power to connect him to the Force, but he's just struggling. I really liked how dark of a place they had Kenobi in this. The fact that he wasn't even willing to help the other Jedi that showed up on the planet later in the episode. It really made it seem like Kenobi had given up, which is exactly how I wanted to see Kenobi feeling after all the loss he suffered from Qui-Gon, Satine, the friends, his clone troopers that were his garrison turning on him and dying and performing Order 66, the loss of the entire Jedi Order, which is pretty much all of his friends, the fall of the Republic, which is the one thing he believed in, and the fall of his apprentice brother and friend, Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, would have just been very jarring for him, and I loved to see him in that dark state. My personal highlight of the first episode was young Leia, um, and her relationship with her father Bail. It was a incredible casting, and they nailed the attitude of young Leia, and just I thought that it was an incredible job of casting, writing, acting, everything just laid out beautifully to make the sassy little girl Leia. Um, and I felt like it's exactly how she was 10 years later, portrayed by Carrie Fisher in A New Hope, just sassed down to a little 10-year-old girl, which was very good. I really loved that. And then the other part that I found very cool of the episode was when the Grand Inquisitor's eyes changed from his regular color to the yellow Sith eyes in the bar on Mos Eisley when he's talking about the Jedi. I just thought this was a really cool thing to just see his eyes slowly shift to that Sith eyes when he starts just really getting heated about the Jedi. And I really liked that little Easter egg in there as well. And then towards the end of the episode, obviously Leia gets kidnapped, um, and then Bail tries to get Obi-Wan to come. Bail goes and visits. Obi-Wan is still like, I'm not going to go, and then he goes and digs up his lightsaber and Anakin's lightsaber out of the sand, out in the middle of the desert. I was very sad to not see Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber in there. I really wanted it to be in that box with the other two, but maybe we'll see it later. Maybe who knows where it is. But that was very cool, and I was very excited to see Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsabers again, and then the final scene of the episode with him going to get on the shuttle, and he puts the change back in his pocket, and you can see his lightsabers. It was a great way to finish the first episode, and I really liked it. The second episode I liked slightly less. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I liked the majority of the episode. The stealth and detective work and escape artistry and hand-to-hand combat of Obi-Wan was really cool. Watching him have the back and forth banter with Leia and reference towards Padme towards the end of the episode was a really nice touch from Deborah and the writers. I also liked seeing Kenobi be uncivilized and be a gunslinger going through the town while the bounty hunters are all attacking him. That was fun as well. Um, the fake Jedi was kind of weird, but I didn't hate it. It was a nice little comedic relief to the episode, and he ended up being like an actual Jedi fan and like Jedi supporter, so it was kind of cool. And I really liked that Kenobi didn't know that Anakin was still alive, and the Vader scene at the end, oh, so good, with him just in the back of the tank, and Kenobi says Anakin and like almost tries to reach out to him, and then you see Vader just open his eyes in the back of the tank, and he's got the red Sith eyes. It was very cool, and I just can't wait to see Vader in the next episode, because like we're getting there, so that's great. The only parts of both episodes I really didn't like were just a few minor things. First was the voice of the fifth brother. I really loved the unique voice of the fifth brother in Rebels. I thought it was a big part of his character, his intimidation tactic, his persona, and it wasn't a major problem when we see recasting of different voices from animated to live action, like Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and she does a really good job. So we'll see if they can get past the whole voice thing with the fifth brother. But for me, it was just kind of an issue in those early episodes, and his attitude and his voice were just pretty different from the original way we see him in Star Wars Rebels. I also wasn't a huge fan of the dynamic between the Inquisitors, and I didn't understand why they deployed so many Inquisitors to one place. Most of the time when we see Inquisitors, they're sent to hunt a specific thing, and it's usually just one at a time. Every once in a while it'll be two, depending on the task, but we never really see more than two on the same planet at once. And in this one, especially with the Grand Inquisitor, he always goes by himself. And so it was really weird to see the Grand Inquisitor and two other Inquisitors all on planet when there was only one suspected target. The only time we see multiple Inquisitors is actually when in Rebels when they are on Malachor, and there's four targets on the planet. And so, and we see we still only see three Inquisitors, and it ends up being deadly for them, and Vader ends up showing up. So I, I, I just didn't quite like the dynamic between them. I feel like Reva and her attitude towards them would just get old very fast, and I have a hard time believing that she's been an Inquisitor for the last 10 years without some of these people at least taking a swing at her, because I just feel like she would not be around for long, and she would have been the one getting stabbed in the stomach way before she did it to the Grand Inquisitor. I did like that Reva told Obi-Wan that Vader was still alive. I didn't like that she re-emphasized it using Anakin's name instead of Vader's. I just feel like no one except for Vader and the Emperor should know that Vader is Anakin Skywalker, and the only people who have figured it out are two of the smartest people in the Empire, and that's Tarkin and Thrawn. And they assume and they don't know for sure until they finally confront Vader about it. And Vader hated the Inquisitors, so if he found out any one of the Inquisitors knew, he would kill them with zero hesitation. He would instantly wipe them off the face of the galaxy for knowing that he was Anakin Skywalker. So I didn't like that she knew that. There are some justifications for how she would have known that, but I just didn't like that she said it. I wish she would have just said Darth Vader's alive, and then it would have went straight into the oh you didn't know. But the last thing I wasn't a huge fan about in the show was the chase scenes of Leia. I just felt like they were a little too kiddie and simple, and they were just kind of slow. And it was like I don't think that a 10-year-old girl is very hard to catch, and they made it seem like she was sliding, jumping, and then the people chasing her were tripping and falling and running into branches and stuff, and I was like, I get that it's a chase scene, but you should have either gave her a bigger head start if you wanted it to last longer, or um, have the guards show up a little earlier. So that was my opinion. It didn't ruin anything. I just thought it was a little funny and weird and slow, but I didn't hate it. And the last thing I really didn't like about the first two episodes, and probably dropped the second episode by a full rating point in my idea, was Reva stabbing the Grand Inquisitor. I hated it for multiple reasons. I hated it because there's no way that she would be able to best him and get the jump on the Grand Inquisitor. He's too smart and skilled for that, to just get blindsided and stabbed through the front of the abdomen. The second reason I didn't like it was he can't be dead. And if Deborah Chow or Disney really messed up if they accidentally just kill off this character like that. So he can't be dead because it would wreck on all the rebels. And that would be a big problem because he's the primary antagonist in the whole first season. And he captures Kanan and forces Ezra and the Ghost Crew to save him. His defeat at the hands of Kanan gives Kanan the confidence in himself and the ability to train Ezra, as well as strengthen the bond between the master and apprentice. And if this story didn't take place, it would just kind of rip Rebels apart at the seams, and the rest of the story would kind of just fall apart because that's a major part of the show. And then that would also cause major problems with the Ahsoka show, which just started filming as well. Because if Rebels didn't happen, the end of Rebels didn't happen, and I feel like Ahsoka is going to be predominantly about the end of Rebels with Sabine and Ahsoka going off to find Ezra, and that will be a problem if the Grand Inquisitor is dead as well, and they retcon Rebels. So long story short, the Grand Inquisitor is alive, or at least he better be. That gets us to what I want to see in the next episode. The Grand Inquisitor alive, first of all, first and foremost. We need to see him alive. And Reva on the run from the Inquisitorius after the attempted murder of the Grand Inquisitor. Or she gets put in her place by Vader. And I mean put in her place, like losing an arm, a leg, both, I don't know what, but just like actual punishment for her insubordination. Kenobi needs to get Leia home and out of danger by the end of the episode so that we can see him being more of Jedi Kenobi and not having to worry about her safety as well as his. We also need to see him start opening up to the Force a little bit, and maybe get put in some situations where he has to. So then by the end of this, he can actually compete with Vader and talk to Qui-Gon, which are two things that I think we need to see towards the end of this show. Hopefully, we get some more flashbacks in the next episode. I loved the ones in episode 1. We didn't really get any in episode 2. I hope that we see some perspective Darth Vader flashbacks. I think it'd be really cool if that closing scene of episode 2 was the opening scene of episode 3, and it went backwards in time a little bit, and it showed him like asleep or like meditating in the bacta tank, and he's having flashbacks, and we see the flashbacks, and then he gets that Kenobi like ding, like the notification, Kenobi just connected to the Force, you know, and that's what made him open his eyes in the bacta tank, and then we see him get pulled out and put together. And I think it would be really cool if the whole third episode was a Vader perspective episode. I think that'd be really cool. I think it would be a good transition, a good way to have just little side things that Kenobi's doing to get Leia back home. And then we can see from Vader's perspective, the Grand Inquisitor's alive, Rey's on the run, or the Grand Inquisitor's alive, and Reva is arrested or whatever. And I think that'd be a very fun way to play the character of Anakin and Obi-Wan. Is the first 2 episodes were very Obi-Wan dominant with a little bit of Leia. Now that Obi-Wan and Leia are together, I want the next episode to be very Vader dominant with a little bit of Obi-Wan and Leia getting back to Alderaan. I think that would be a very fun way to play that episode. I also wouldn't mind to have the flashbacks be a little more new stories, some new situations we haven't seen them in. I liked the flashbacks getting pulled straight out of the movies, but I want to see a little bit fresh and new Anakin and Obi-Wan content from the Clone Wars era, probably. I really want to see him getting suited up at some point in this next episode as well. And by him, I mean Vader getting suited up. And I would love to see that either be the opening scene or the closing scene of this episode is Vader getting fully suited up. So those are my thoughts on episode 1 and episode 2. Let me know your thoughts and comments below, or DM me on Instagram if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for talking Star Wars.